Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is a cult classic Mario RPG that is beloved by many. This game has a die-hard fan base, it is respected highly by critics, and in my opinion, this is easily the best Paper Mario game in the series, and one of the best Mario games as well. Now this game may not be everyone's cup of tea, which is fine, but some people generally think that this game is terrible, awful, hot garbage. These people will then get so angry that they will then go onto sites such as Metacritic to leave outrageously bad 1 out of 10 or even 0 out of 10 reviews for the game, which is just completely ridiculous. These reviews can be pretty funny to read though, so today I'm going to share with you some hilariously bad reviews for both the original Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and the 2024 remake. So our first review comes from Dr. Pigman, and here is what they said. "I can't believe it's possible that such a pile of garbage even exists. This game has nothing special and is always the same way too bad. I hate it so much I would like to report the developers. The only positive point is the music. This game makes a Nintendo fan like me way too sad. I feel all the negative emotions just by mentioning it. 0 out of 10. I mean, this review doesn't even give a proper reason as to why they think this is a bad game. Our next review comes from Dry Bones Hussar, and they wrote, "Very poor level design, with difficulty nowhere to be found, with enough backtracking to bore someone to exhaustion. But badges are good as always, and like 4 areas are designed well. 4 out of 10. Thankfully this person has actually specifically said what parts of the game they don't like, which is an improvement from the first review. I do understand why some people would be put off by the lack of difficulty, although this is a Mario game, so I feel like most people would expect this to be quite an easy game. And yes, there is quite a lot of backtracking in this RPG, so I can understand if that's one of the main sticking points as to why people don't get on with this game. I do think that saying this game has very poor level design though is a bit harsh. Babodi has given Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door a 3 out of 10. Played it recently. Feels like a DS game that only uses one screen and has lazy writing. Massively overrated. Color Splash is better than this game. Feels like a DS game. What? Wizard Minecraft has written us a review for Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Why does this exist? It's just TLOZ space colon space OOT space 2 colon electric boogaloo. But it's Mario. Every single trope is used here. The difficulty is unfair at times, regardless of what level you are at, unless you're over leveled. Doesn't matter anyway, because you can spam power bounces over and over on non-spiked enemies, and spam hammers on spiked enemies, and use your partners as meat shields, and use their purposes once or twice. Thank God we got Sticker Star and Color Splash to make up for this overrated 0 out of 10. I don't really know what's going on with this review. It felt like at the start this guy was saying that the game was too hard, but then they started complaining that the combat system was too easy. Bit strange, but one thing I can say for certain is that Sticker Star and Color Splash are definitely not better than the Thousand Year Door. IECD has also given Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door a 0 out of 10, and here is what they said. "This game is so overrated and it's not even funny. I went in with high expectations, but man, I was disappointed. My big problem with this game has to be the levels, the main gameplay. They are just so boring, repetitive, and backtracking felt like I can't even put to words the amount of backtracking this game has. It's actually insane. The combat is pretty fine, but in terms of RPGs, it can feel a bit bland and repetitive, but it's definitely better than going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth like almost the entire game is. The overarching story, albeit more complex and unique than most Mario games, it ends up feeling more boring than Bowser kidnapping Peach because of the damn writing. It's just so pointless and has way too much fluff. The music is alright, and that's about all I can say is good about this game. I didn't even feel motivated to beat this, but unfortunately I did. Saying that the story here is more boring than the usual Mario plot of Bowser Bowser kidnapping Peach is definitely a hot take. With the backtracking complaints, again I get it because you do end up doing that a lot, but I don't think that and the other points raised here should lead to this game being scored a 0 out of 10. Next up is Adam30. Terrible game. Awful. No good. If you lost on health and stuck somewhere to a tavern to refill up on items and health, you're stuck. 0 out of 10. MogMog000 has also awarded Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door a 0 out of 10. Cumbersome combat with mandatory button timing. Only one person can participate in a battle at the same time, even if more friends are added. Boring characters and childish storyline. I'm sorry, but Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door has some of the most creative, coolest, and original characters in any Mario game. How can you say they are boring? This next review comes from only one here, and it focuses specifically on the remake for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. This is quite a long review, but stick with it as trust me, it's worth the read. This game is a steaming pile of garbage. The greedy developers are charging $60 for a mobile game. I feel like the Paper Mario series is a product of a board meeting where the lead developer asked the rest of devs what would be a good excuse to be greedy and lazy. A greedy developer thought of the idea to make Mario out of paper as a pathetic excuse to keep the characters 2D with poorly designed animations, and thus Paper Mario was born. If that wasn't lazy enough, they used a turn-based combat system. People need to stop calling this a remake. That term should be reserved for actual remakes like Resident Evil and Final Fantasy. This type of remake should be called a rework or anything else, because it's pretty much the same trash. $60 for a 20-year-old rework is extremely expensive. If anything, this rework is worse than the original. I do not remember Goombella's voice being this annoying in the original. The graphics are a joke, the physics are beyond horrible, the gameplay is boring and repetitive. There is no multiplayer, so once you beat the story, this game will go back to the shelf and collect dust. Charging $60 for a game with no replay value is a cash grab. Sure, the original didn't have multiplayer, but there isn't a single rule dictating that they can't add multiplayer. I'm getting real sick and tired of developers having a companion follow you throughout the entire game, only for co-op to be missing. Not that I necessarily want co-op for the campaign, I'd much rather have a standalone experience for the multiplayer, but it annoys me when developers have something clearly built for multiplayer and they still choose to be greedy and lazy to add any form of multiplayer. And what's worse is that the companions share the same screen as Mario, meaning it would be easier for the devs to include co-op, especially local, in the game than in a 3D game with a dynamic camera, since the latter would have to render the world for multiple players. It's embarrassing how they still can't add multiplayer when all is considered. Why is this even considered an RPG? What classifies something as an RPG? I don't recommend this game at all. 0 out of 10. Man, there's a lot to dissect from this review. I'll start by saying that I think we can all agree that this game does not feel or look like a mobile game that was put together by greedy developers. I think that this is generally a well done remake. It looks gorgeous, it's got tons of quality of life improvements, and overall, this remake feels much better to play compared to the original version. Sure, the game only runs at 30 frames per second, while the GameCube version ran at 60, but the game looks so beautiful that it just doesn't matter at all. The other main complaint in this review was about the fact that this remake didn't add multiplayer to the game, which I think is a very strange reason to dunk on this remake for, as this was clearly designed to be a single player RPG. Sure, local co-op could maybe work in this game, but the lack of a multiplayer mode shouldn't be the reason why this game gets a 0 out of 10. Alright, I've got one more hilariously bad review for you, coming from AdaSC2906. Play Color Splash or Origami King instead of this garbage. Like seriously, don't play this. 2 out of 10. That is certainly an interesting hot take to end off on. So there you go, that was 9 hilariously bad reviews for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. Some for the original game and some for the remake as well. I've covered some other Mario games in this hilariously bad reviews series already, including Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and that video is on the screen right now, so go give that a watch if you haven't seen it already.